Now, I'm super excited by our next guest speaker here, talking about Neelesh Ajmani. Neelesh is the IT transformation leader with multiple industries experience at Cisco. He is an enterprise architect with focus on data transformation leadership and one who truly focuses on outcomes. Neelesh has graciously joined us today to share his wisdom and expertise, specifically focused on achieving and sustaining secure business operations for digital workplace transformation. Neelesh, it's always a privilege to have you with us. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and expertise with our global audience today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So today my focus is on achieving and sustaining secure business operations while we are going through this journey of digital workplace transformation. And I want to emphasize that security, even though being considered given and everybody is focusing, but my emphasis is how security should be looked from the lens of securing the business operations. And I have been doing this for the last, I would say, 15 plus years now. And this focus is helping me advising other, I would say, customers of Cisco and outside Cisco to really able to look it from the business operations angle and not just from the technology angle. So that's what I will cover today. And I want to cover on the soft side of it, not on the technology side, because there is already a lot available in that area. So this is my agenda today, and we'll look into the details. So we know we have all gone through this journey of digital workplace transformation. It's not a new thing. At least in my books, it's going on for ages. And if we look into it from the last 50, 70, 80 years, in this transformation, we started, I'm not going beyond mainframes, but if we start from mainframes onwards, we are looking into, in this journey, we started with a simple securing our mainframe room, you can say, call it, with the physical locks. And then we added additional security controls when we introduced internet era, and we added DMZs, we added firewalls, and so on. We kept moving in the technology side from mainframes to laptops to mobile devices. But eventually now we are at a state that we are in a zero trust motion, and that is looks very flashy, zero trust. But think of it, we have reached a state that we have a zero trust now on any kind of tools, assets that we want to access, and we want to build trust every moment. To get any new screen even popping up, we need to first make sure that it is validated that we are the right people who is trying to access that particular information. And this is turning into, like, from security to cyber security. Security has become a growing industry, and it is keep growing, and it is causing more risks and creating fear. So think about all this, that where we have taken ourselves in this journey, and from the digital workplace transformation, we have moved towards full remote work in the last 2 years. Now we are talking about hybrid work, and still we have no trust on anything. So how do we change this? That's what I'm trying to emphasize today. So if you look into cybersecurity, which is the term that is commonly used today, you look at any profitable or any non-profitable company, CEOs, CIOs, and CTSOs, their job is at stake. And it starts from the board level. But what about others? Do they have to play any role in security? Or it's only board to CEO to CIO to CISO. And not only in the corporations, even in our residential, we are facing this threat now because of the IoT. We have connected devices at home, and that poses a lot of the risk for identity theft. And we are keep adding this fear, but at the same time, we are keep improving our technologies to use them, but with the increased fear. So how do we change all that? Now, we want to mitigate the risks on individuals and also on others. And when I look into all this, since I'm engaged in these kinds of initiatives, my thought process is always on business operations, that how do we secure them? And if you look into any theft incidents that became a national level or a corporate level issue, at the end of the day, you will find out the root cause was always that there was some lack in operations, and that caused, not applying, say, a patch at a time, or not updating the software updates that were provided by the vendor in a timely manner, or there was some, loosely coupled workforce who has, exposed the information accidentally. So those are all related to business operations. And we should not be in a fear mode. We should be changing it into a confidence. And how we take this as an advantage and make it a competitive edge by gaining, control on it and not remain in the fear mode. So this leads to soft areas like how do we look into our mindset, our attitude, and how is our approach for planning and managing this security. So again, here I am covering some of the high level details. If you look into any of these frameworks that are in use, they are highly technical focus and they are very detail oriented. I mean, it is, according to me, challenge to even adopt these frameworks end to end because they are not pragmatic. They have a lot of details, and if you do any assessment for any company, you will be able to only focus on few of the areas, and there also you will find that the guidelines that are given in these frameworks are not properly adopted, and that is still focusing on the security from the technology standpoint. And then if you look into the evolutions that has been occurred in the business area, I picked few of them: quality or overall automation or internet or digitization. Let's start with quality. When the quality management began, it was mainly a manufacturing facility where the quality controls were applied. But gradually, when the impact of that was seen overall at a business level, it became a management practice and it became a corporate quality efforts, not just at a manufacturing plant level. And all that happened through IT innovations. And gradually, IT has started taking a main seat in the corporate strategy building versus a backend or a support organization only, because IT innovations are helping improving business outcomes or achieving business outcomes. And same happened in the case of automations or internet. Now we are in, I think, 3 or 4, Internet 4.0, and it's growing. We are completely dependent. I joke with my friends that when you go to a new home, what do you want first, a kitchen or an internet? And the first answer immediately comes, I want internet access. So it has become a part of our life. And same is in digitization. So everywhere, what we are seeing that once in any of the areas, it has got the business focus and it has been looked through the business management angle, it has become a growth for business and it has created avenues to grow business and gain competitive edge. So same needs to be done in the security area. And when we look from digital workplace transformation, which is also keep going, we have to make it part of the DNA of the business. But how do we do that? I'm going to share some more slides where I have some frameworks and the holistic viewpoint, how it should be looked into, and that should be hopefully interesting for you to think about it. And moving on, what do I mean by business centricity of security and risk management? First of all, this is the very simple and high level framework from where I want to start with these 5 P's. That when we talk about security, we talk about all these 5 P elements. And if you see from people perspective, we are talking about culture, we are talking about continuity, and we are talking about management and operations. And these are all intertwined. If you lose focus on one, if you don't realize what needs to be protected, you will have challenges. If your profile is not well built, if you do not have good control on your vulnerabilities or your risks identification, and how do you, what policies, what processes, what governance you have in place to mitigate those, if they are not tied to your people culture, if they are not tied to your prevention knowledge, you will not be able to have a balanced, secure business operations. Continuing, what should be the secure operating model? And if you see, looking from the business management, risk management, compliance controls, operations, master data, or infrastructure management perspective, the intersection of all this, that is where the secured operating model should be. It should not be just lean towards information management or IT side or infrastructure side. It should be holistic. Continuing, what do we need in this model and how it ties with the other pieces of the business? So we have a business engagement model, but in that model, we need to focus on why do we need to secure business operations. And that will become possible only if every CXO is thinking about it and accountability is shared about it by all the CXOs, and it should not be like board to CEO to CIO to CISO. And what do we secure? So we need to have the business model around it. What do we secure? And I am sharing very high level frameworks over here. There are detailed frameworks. And what capabilities do we need? Like we saw in the previous slides, we need to have a secured operating model, and we need to look into from all those domain areas to come up with this model. And after addressing why, what, we need to focus on how part. And that's where we need to leverage these frameworks that are available, but we need to again look into holistically from policies, processes, controls, and systems perspective. Now, this is just one of the illustrative view of all the operating capabilities that needs to be part of secured operating model. And I did cover at a high level about it, but here I went into, from 10,000 to 1,000 feet level and sharing all the various capability areas where we need to focus on and create it as through this model, a platform for securing the business operations. Continuing, security measurements are critical. And how do we measure security effectiveness? The traditional way we have all seen, like we have reduced these many email phishing activities, or we could sense some of the vulnerabilities in the firewall, and our mean time to resolve have been improved. We have seen all those type of measurements, but are they truly related to giving the positive effect to the business operations security? Are they tied to the business operations KPIs? So keeping all that in mind, what I am trying to say over here is that first we need to understand how do we measure the effectiveness of an organization, and we need to align security effectiveness towards that. And these are the common, measurement areas for organization effectiveness and for business viability and its relevance. And these covers innovation to run the business to managing the business equity. And if I give a pause for a moment over here, if you think about security KPIs, are there anywhere they are aligned to these? Are they ensuring that whatsoever measurements or whatsoever controls we have in place, will they help us achieve these effectiveness goals? So we need to build a bridge so that security effectiveness is eventually helping achieving organization effectiveness. And as I showed a couple of slides ago, we have various capabilities in the security operating model. So we need to look each capability's cost effectiveness, because otherwise sky is the limit when you start securing everything to anything. But we need to be pragmatic, and we need to understand from the cost effectiveness perspective also. And again, these are the, you can say subcategories for cost effectiveness: cost of performance, time and opportunity cost, and what should be the total cost of a capability. We need to look into that. And when I say total cost of capability, and when I say management, it even includes maintaining that capability on an ongoing basis. And continuing, if you look into the value flow, like from strategic and financial measures perspective, from operational perspective, from the capabilities and the various type of solutions and practices, it goes through a very complex flow. And this is just one illustration that to achieve value or to sustain value, what are areas we go through, but this is showing an illustration of how they are all tied together, how they have interdependencies and how they contribute in each other's areas. And in the next slide, I'm going to show another illustration that if we focusing for achieving this value flow, what should be our roadmap? Like if we just look into this highlighted areas. So this is again an illustration. Every company will have its own value flow, but when we look into effectiveness, we are considering securing business operations as part of it if you look into all these three areas. I think this is what I wanted to cover today. I want to give more time for Q&A, and this is a very broad topic, so I'm open for any Q&A right now, and thank you for listening to all this.
Neelesh, very good. You're always incisive in your coverage. You get to the point and you discuss the main areas very effectively and efficiently. And I ask the audience that continue to submit your questions here. I have a few questions for you that have popped up already. And I'm going to ask you to stop showing your presentation screen so that it opens up more space for our cameras to come through. And the audience can see us now. So terrific presentation, Neelesh, again. I'm going to start by asking you, what do you see on specifically related to security and secure business operations? What, with the pandemic, of course, digital transformations have accelerated. Security concerns and opportunities have accelerated accordingly. What do you see right now when you see organizations that are doing it best? What is that they're doing different from everybody else when it comes to security?
So I think, like I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, still I see that it is fear-driven and regulatory-driven. Like every company first trying to make sure that they are compliant with all the regulations. And those regulations are not easy, first of all, to be compliant when we look globally. And every company is now global. So you have local regulations, you have federal regulations, you have then global regulations. So maintaining all that is going on well. Otherwise, it is not easy for sustaining any business. But there is no focus on how to make it a competitive edge and how to convert this fear. When you are complying to the regulations, you are just taking care of fear that, okay, now I'm compliant, I won't get fines and all that. But still you are not able to make it as a competitive edge. It's not ingrained into your products, into your culture. So still there is a lot to be done in this area. And my thought process is not helping companies, because there are many consulting companies, there are many smart people helping them. I am looking into at a root level, bringing it into culture through the academics, through the college education level, so that they understand how securing business operations is critical. And if they are transitioning into the professional world, how they think and how they, create further self-awareness and understand the threats that their companies are explaining to them and how they should act upon that. So that's what I see the gap.
Very, very well. Do you know, as you of course you mentioned throughout your presentation, just emphasize now, a lot of security is driven by compliance, regulatory, and the fear of something going wrong or being caught somewhere. Now, what do you think? You're talking about the academic side of things. You can educate the new generation to learn about, looking at security as an opportunity for better business operations, as opposed to a fear factor. Very, very useful for sure. In the meantime, where do you think that we are falling short? I think that as business leaders, we're falling short of making that business case to senior leaders. And again, people just want to stay out of trouble, as opposed to becoming proactive about security and showing how it creates value. So my question to you is that, if I'm discussing with senior leaders, what is the business case that I can make for them that you think is most effective? When I say I want to become more proactive about security and as part of our business operations, it sounds good, but I think most business leaders still look at it as a cost and not as a value add. How can you articulate that as a value add so that we can communicate better with our senior leaders?
Very, very good question. And I think if I read in between your question, you are saying, how do we create a business case? Okay. And how do we show the value to the business leaders? So I am interpreting that as a bottom-up approach. Okay? And like I mentioned, it is a board level issue for every corporation. But from board, it goes to CEO to CIO to CISO. Okay. And then CISO is trying to do the same thing. The examples that you have given, how do they create the business case for it? How do they show the business value? And what I am emphasizing over here is that when it comes to CEO level, why it is only going to CIO? Why not to other CXOs? Because they have the same stakes and they have to get the same accountability to think about their areas. Like if you are in R&D, how do you look into research and design your products which are secured, embedded? If you are in, say, production, how do you make sure your production facilities are going to be secured to not only securing the design, but your production operations? Okay. If you are in operations area, you need to make sure that you are understanding your accountability if you lack security area. Like every operation nowadays is dependent upon some type of a software solution. And softwares are the main source of bringing the security vulnerabilities. So you have to stay on top of that. How do you manage your vulnerabilities? How do you track them? So it needs to be looked top down. Then the business case is already there. The business value will be a collective business value from different functional areas. And then it will become a top-down driven initiative, and it will add value for the business. It will not consider them as a cost. So that's how I'm trying to emphasize repetitively.
That's very good, and it's a very difficult cycle to break because the CEOs of the organizations often are not aware of this very good perspective that you're sharing here with us. And to a certain extent, they think I'm going to hire some IT guy, some technical guy who's going to do this for us, right? And it becomes the business of IT as opposed the IT of the business, and that's very difficult to escape that. You made some very good analogies, and for some of us who have been in the industry for a few decades, I caught on to your analogy of security systems with quality management. Quality management, perhaps in its very beginnings, was very much driven by compliance, as you said, and it was about. And then over time, it became its own business, the business of quality. While in reality, it should always be about the quality of the business. And it's a very important shift in perspective that I think security, as somewhat of a, certainly relative to quality, is a newer field, information security anyway. I think that we're still kind of evolving in that sense. And what you're talking about here is an acceleration of that evolution.
Yeah, and if I may add to my response, one more element. When I say that academic level, it should be considered as a root cause or a root level initiative. I am MBA background, and I think it is very important for the business schools to consider this as an academic course area to teach the future business leaders, because some of them will become CEOs. Some of them will become executives in the business organizations. And if they have been taught through their education onward that think this as the part of the DNA of making any business decision, then it's going to be top-down driven. And because it is a very difficult shift, that's why if we just focus on corporations and try to educate CEOs, we'll get success. I am not saying we'll not get success, but still it will not become a culture. And security needs, the way it has been increasing, like I gave an example, without internet, we cannot even enter our new home. So without security, how will you run your residential day-to-day life? Or how will you run your business? So it needs to become part of the DNA.
I love that. And I'm going to steal some of these concepts. I'll say this in public right now. I'm doing a keynote for a university in Delhi in India on April 15th. And there will be 300 academics and administrators there. And you have just gave me a very good insight that I should just share directly with them about, because this is a conference they're having focus on IT and security. And I think what you have just encapsulated here very well is a very important part of that I should build in my message to them, because I very much agree with you that it requires an evolution of the business of security and into the security of the business. And it requires academics plays a big part of that in educating the next generation of leaders. So the digital transformations that have been taking place right now, they have security typically as a component of digital transformation. And to your point, it's usually about, we're doing this digital transformation. Oh, and by the way, someone makes sure that this stuff is secure so that we're not going to get hacked because we're creating vulnerabilities here. What is your advice for practitioners right now who are doing digital transformation and they are thinking about security on their digital transformations? How do you start making that shift for them? What type of advice do you give to the practitioners who are in the field right now for implementing security as part of their digital transformations? How should they shift their mindset?
Yeah. So what is occurring right now in the industry is in this digital transformation, they are having silo initiatives. Okay? They are looking in one particular area. Within the same company, other function is looking into another particular area. And they are not seeing the impact of their progression on the other areas. Okay? And the root cause of that is that the architecture that they are putting together is not at an enterprise level. It's at a function level or at a silo level. But security is like a virus. It spreads in a moment of a click of a button, it spreads. So yeah, already there are a lot of talks and a lot of, I would say, academic or books, articles available. We should collaborate and all that. But we are not having enterprise architecture as a practice that is industry recognized. And many companies, or I would say most companies, do not have that as a function. They have architecture functions, but at a solution level and at a silo function level. So you will make gains through that, but you will not look into vulnerabilities that needs to be looked from enterprise integrated layer perspective. So you have to build those kind of functions which are looking enterprise and which are seeing the impact of one progression on others holistically. And then this has a direct impact on budgeting and prioritization. Every software goes through its own life cycle and it adds more vulnerabilities. It provides more recommendations that you have to go to my newer version to get this problem fixed, but there is a cost associated. And every business has a mentality from the finance perspective when they are controlling the finances that this asset has five-year life cycle. We should consume it for 5 years and then see whether we can extend it through external supportability. But then you would lose the vulnerabilities management. Those are getting more introduced because of other factors which are making progression, and you will not be able to control it. So it will always remain fear. So look at holistically and through the enterprise architecture angle and have the priority on maintaining the life cycle as the biggest priority and understand the risks to it, not just that you are looking into other business outcomes and don't focusing securing as a business outcome always as your top priority.
Very well. And I have a final question here from the audience, and this has to do with enterprise architecture. I'm glad you mentioned that. So as you just mentioned, enterprise architecture is poorly defined in a lot of organizations. Is a bit of an emerging field still. We have entire conferences focused right now on enterprise architecture, and you can just attend one of those to see that there are 5 different speakers with 5 different definitions of enterprise architecture. So it shows that it's a field that's still forming to a certain extent, even though it has been, some will claim it's been around for a long time. Having said that, the enterprise architects, and there are a few who are attending this conference and are watching this video in live, or they will consume this content later on. What is your advice for enterprise architects? What are the skills? I mean, we assume a certain level of technical knowledge on, on tools and methods and techniques and enterprise architecture as a discipline. But what are the skill sets that you think are missing on enterprise architects today to make that connection to the business and drive meaningful enterprise architecture? What do you suggest that they focus on developing?
A broader business understanding, because it again ties back with what is the definition of an enterprise architect. Okay. And skill set, one of the major skill set is business understanding, but at an enterprise level of various functions, if not all the functions. Okay. And technology is not the priority for an enterprise architect. They don't know the nitty-gritty details. They do not need to know the nitty-gritty details of a technology. They need to look into what are the business strategies, how they execute it properly, and to achieve that execution, what kind of capabilities are required that can be reused by various functions, okay? And stay at a business knowledge and at a concept level. Now, I'm not saying that you can remain in that layer only as an enterprise architect, but that is a major skill. Okay? Then if you take down one level below that, is how does it align my current technology platform or technology environment, not individual product or individual solution, and do the gap assessment at that level. So they should be great in doing the gap assessment. That means they need to have a strong analytical skills. Then only they can understand the gap assessment or conduct it. And they need to understand the operational part of the business, not only strategic part, because they have to ensure that through their lens, they can guide how to achieve operational excellence and sustain it. So those are the major skills for enterprise architecture. And if you have other skills and you are an architect, then you are either a functional architect or a solution architect or a domain or an IT architect.
Very well said. Neelesh, it's always a masterclass with you. I know you're broadcasting today from Boston, Massachusetts to the rest of the world. And on behalf of this global audience, I want to say thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your time in sharing your tremendous wisdom and expertise with all of us.
Thank you again, everyone. And thank you, Jose, for giving me this opportunity. And thanks to all of your team who is with you. Thanks again, and look forward to work with you again.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Neelesh Ajmani, customer success, measurement, and analytics and data management at Cisco, sharing his wisdom and expertise with our global audience, and we're all better off as a result of that. So we're going to be wrapping up the session now, and I'll have to say thanks to everyone who has been here with us for the last 3 days. Thanks to our speakers for being so generous in sharing their wisdom and expertise with us. Thanks to our sponsors, Nintex and Workboard, for making all of this possible. We shouldn't be able to provide this level of material, content, speaker quality if it were not for the support from our sponsors, which are Nintex and Workboard for this conference. Thank you so much for really engaging with the audience here and putting your resources behind the production of this conference and allow us to broadcast at no cost to our global audience. We have more than 1,500 registered participants in the conference who are all going to be benefiting from this content. Now, for those of you who missed a few sessions, remember, in the next couple of weeks, as a registered participant, you'll receive an email and with a link and password to access each one of these sessions at your own pace, on demand. So it's a benefit of being a registered participant. Now, I want to say thank you to Brian Raffel, who makes sure that all these pieces come together to produce this conference across 3 different days, 12 different speakers in different global locations. There are so many things that can go wrong with technology and locations and schedule conflicts. It's remarkable how it all comes together, and we're able to provide you this content with very few interruptions. So thank you, Brian, for your dedication and for your leadership. Thank you, Vijay Bajaj, the CEO of Proqis Digital, for making this all happen, for creating an environment where great leaders and great ideas can connect. And of course, thanks for everyone here in the audience who has participated, engaged, actively contributed through your questions, through your insights, through your commentary. Make sure that you go into the LinkedIn post under this conference, say thanks to the sponsors, say thanks to the speakers, ask additional questions if you have them right at the conference post on LinkedIn. You find it under my name, Jose Perez, and Digital Workplace Transformation Live post on LinkedIn. So for now, have a great rest of your week, whatever you are in the world, and we will continue on our culture, business, and digital transformation journey in the years ahead. Take care for now, and thank you for being with us.